Hi, this is Don McAllister, and welcome to another ScreenCastsOnline weekly tip video. In this week's tip video, I'll be taking a look at security and privacy on the Mac, giving you some tips on best practice for keeping your Mac secure. Let's make a start by taking a look at stopping unauthorized access to your Mac. Now, one of the most important requirements for security on your Mac, especially for a laptop, but for a desktop as well, is that you need to make sure that it's configured so that you are prompted for a password when the machine comes out of sleep or comes out of a screensaver. Now, the way you would do that is to go to System Preferences. Let's just go to System Preferences, and within System Preferences, we'll actually go to Security and Privacy. Now, under General, I already have mine set up here. A login password has been set for this user. I could change my login password from here if I want, but the important thing is this: require password immediately after sleep or screensaver begins. Now, this also applies if you just have your display go to sleep as well. Now, if you have an Apple Watch, you can allow your Apple Watch to unlock your Mac. I'm going to leave that switched off for this demo, but if you check back over at ScreenCastsOnline.com, I've actually gone through how to set up your Apple Watch with your Mac for automatic login. Now, going back to this requiring the password immediately after sleep or screensaver begins, that's great, but you need to configure your Mac so that you can invoke sleep or screensaver immediately. You don't want to be in a position whereby you can just walk away from your Mac and allow anyone access to your desktop. To do that, what you need to do is over here, if we go to Desktop and Screensaver first. Now, these are the various screensavers that you can select. I must admit, I tend not to use a screensaver. I tend to put my display to sleep when I move away from my Mac. But if you want to use a screensaver, what you would do is select the relevant one. And then this is the important thing here. Start after, well, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. Now, obviously, you're not going to set it to kick in after 1 minute or 2 minutes. That would drive you insane, because if you stop working, you turn around, go back to your machine, and the screensaver's kicked in. And of course, now that we've configured it to require a password every time that you wake it from the screensaver, it's going to be quite inconvenient to do that each time. So what I would suggest is to set up hot corners. So if you want to use the screensaver, set up one of your screen corners to invoke. So if I wanted to set up, well, I normally use this bottom corner here, I can actually go up and say Start Screensaver. And when I do that, if I say OK to here, if I actually go down to the bottom corner, screensaver kicks in. And then if I hit spacebar to go back in, I now need to enter my password to get back into the machine. But as I say, I tend not to use the screensaver very much. What I tend to do is go to hot corners and then say put display to sleep. And that just displays a blank screen rather than the screensaver. Now, both of these mechanisms are fine, especially if you're only going to be away from your machine for a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, it's fine. If you're going to be away for longer, you might actually want to put your machine to sleep. Now, sleep is completely different from just the display sleep or screensavers. If you actually put your machine to sleep, it does use a lot less energy. Microprocessor goes into a low power mode, your video output is turned off. So basically, it really shuts the machine down, but does enable it to come back very, very quickly. And again, if we do put the machine into sleep, we will be prompted to enter a password when it returns from sleep. And it's normally pretty quick coming back out of sleep. Now, you may have noticed if we go back to hot corners, there is no actual way to put the machine to sleep. We've got put display to sleep, but there is no option for full sleep. So there are different ways to do it. Let's just leave that as OK. If I actually pop this out of the way, if you want to do it manually, you can go up to the Apple command, and there is an option here to sleep. You can also, if we go back into System Preferences, if we go to Energy Saver, and if we go to Schedule, right, we can actually get the machine to start up or wake or go to sleep on a distinct schedule, which you can configure for various days at various times. But I'm going to say cancel to that. I don't actually want to do that. There's also an option here, by the way, to turn your display off automatically after a certain length of time. But I tend to say never, because I shut down my display manually. But let's just close that. Now, the quickest way to put your display to sleep is to use a keyboard shortcut. Now, if your machine supports it, if you have an eject key, you can use Control, Shift and Eject to put your Mac's desktop to sleep immediately. But if you're finished working and you want to walk away from your machine and put it into full sleep, you can use the keyboard shortcut Option, Command and Eject. If you use one of the new MacBook Pros with the touch bar, you don't have an eject key, but you can configure the touch bar to go into any of the sleep modes, also the screensavers, etc. And the way you would do that is to go into System Preferences. And if we in System Preferences go to Keyboard. Now before we go into Customize the Control Strip, let me show you what my current layout looks like. If I go into Touche, which is a third-party application that allows me to mimic how my touch bar is actually configured at the moment. So you'll see across on the right-hand side, I've got brightness, volume controls, and the Siri option. If I want to reconfigure that, I'll just switch it off so it doesn't interfere with what we're seeing on screen. If I go to Customize Control Strip, right down here, I've got options for screensaver, for screen lock, and also for sleep. And if I want to put these into my control strip, if I just drag this down, let's put the screensaver on one button. I'll display these to you when we have a look at Touche in a second. Screen lock as well, I can just drag down to the touch bar, and options for sleep as well, I can just drag that down. Okay, so I've overwritten some of the keys on the control strip. If I just go back into Touche to have a look what that looks like. Right, so this is my option for a screensaver. This is to put my display to sleep, and this is to go directly into sleep. So with these displayed, I can just with a single key press, let's give this a go. If I actually put my display lock on, okay, and then hit spacebar to come back out, I actually do get prompted to unlock with Touch ID, which I can do from the touch bar, or I can just type in my password to get back in. If you want to learn more about using your Apple devices, there are over 700 full video tutorials available to ScreenCastsOnline members, covering all aspects of the Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and even the Apple TV. Now, all full members receive a new Apple-related video tutorial each and every week, as well as a free subscription to the ScreenCastsOnline monthly magazine, packed with videos and articles on getting the most out of your Apple devices. Now, you can get your free 14-day trial membership over at ScreenCastsOnline.com, or check out some of the free content over on the SCO Showcase app on the iPad, iPhone, and Apple TV. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week with another tip, so I'll speak to you then.